People that have had Sunday school or go to Bible studies and whatnot have inevitably heard the story of Joseph and the coat of many colors. How he gets sold into Egypt, how he rises to second in command, how he can interpret dreams and whatnot. But a lot of them don't know the bit about where he enslaves everyone in all of Egypt except for Pharaoh's house and the priests. And that's one of the most important bits in the whole story because it shows that Joseph is the first Grabbler. Because what happens is Pharaoh has a dream, multiple dreams actually, that show that there will be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And Joseph is the only one able to tell this. He's the only one able to interpret this dream because God's given him that ability. And so Pharaoh puts him in charge of the situation to prepare for the 7 years of famine. And so that's what he does. He stockpiles huge amounts of grain. So he's got all of this food ready for the 7 years of famine. And then the disaster hits, the famine hits, and he's the only one in so many countries that has food. And so people are coming to him from all over. And everyone in Egypt is coming to him and saying, we need food. And so first, they pay him in money for the food. And he's the only one with the food, so it's going to cost a lot of money. And this isn't, nonsense printed shit that you can make out of thin air. This isn't dollar bills. This isn't fiat currency. It isn't Bitcoin. It's not imaginary nonsense. This is gold and silver, right? This is real money that they're paying. And eventually, they run out. They don't have any more money. And so then what do? They're starving. They're going to die. They go to him and they say, we have livestock. We have animals. Trade us your food for our animals. Because if we don't have food, we can't feed our animals die and we die. And so he does. He trades them food for animals. And that lasts for about another year. And then the people go to him and they're starving. And they say, all we have left is our land and ourselves. Please take us as slaves in exchange for food. Don't let us all die and our land just sits there and someone else takes it. And so Joseph gives them the food, makes them all slaves. And, slavery, it wasn't the most brutal. It was like sharecropping, basically, where Joseph let them stay on the land, farm the land, and had to pay 20% to Pharaoh. And they didn't own the land anymore. That's basically the situation that we have seen over and over and over in history. Except the difference is that the Grabblers these days don't have this divine ability to see upcoming disasters. And so if they prepare for a disaster and then they wait year after year after year and the disaster doesn't come, they get impatient. And so then what they do is they prepare for a disaster, then they make that disaster happen and give some nonsense solution, right? Like, there's magical invisible germs, viruses flying through the air, and you have to be very, very scared of them, even though you can't see them or really any of their effects. And the only way to save yourself from them is to stay apart from other people, lose your job, destroy all small businesses, wear a mask, and inject poison into yourself in exchange for fiat currency, right? Total nonsense. And it's been done over and over and over. Global warming, all of the scares of overpopulation that have been going on for like centuries, AIDS, Ebola, just all of these made up disasters. But the problem is that when a real disaster comes, and a real disaster will eventually come, is that people don't actually have anything to offer the Grabbler. And I don't even know if there are grabblers these days, like Joseph, who are prepared for real disasters. Because, see, in Egypt, they had real money. They had gold and silver. They had livestock. They had land that they owned. These days, some people have some gold and silver, smart ones that understand how worthless the dollar is. Some people have animals, not many, and almost no one actually owns their land. Pretty much everyone rents or has mortgages, has payments. They don't own their land. Some grabbler owns their land, which means they're already a slave. And if you're already a slave and you don't have money, you don't have livestock, you don't have land, you don't have anything actually tangible except for your labor. You have almost nothing to offer a grabbler like Joseph. So you become as much of a slave as he wants, like that. He just enslaves you in an instant, the moment any real disaster happens. Or, even worse case scenario, there aren't any grabblers actually prepared for a real disaster, and since you don't own anything of value, you just die. You're just some slave that dies. Because who gives a shit about a slave that was dumb enough to get a mortgage, to get no animals, to not ever get any actual valuable currency? The grabblers don't care about them, and so you just die. So get out of slavery first, right? Before you can even think about a disaster, get out of slavery, because you're already at the end point of the story of Joseph enslaving Egypt. You're already one of them, and there's a very real chance that it's worse, that you're worse than that, because you don't even believe you're a slave. And so get out of debt, right? If you're in debt, you are a slave. If you don't own the land you stand on, the land that you sleep on, you are a slave. If you do not have animals, or gold, or silver, or anything actually tangible, wood even, lumber, bricks, tangible things, reality-based, you can actually do something with them. If you don't have that, then you have nothing to trade the grabbler when an actual disaster comes. So you have to get to the starting point of that story of the Egyptians with Joseph. You have to get to the starting point where they have resources to trade. They have land, they have animals, they have real currency. And then and only then, after how many years and decades it takes you to get there, you have to look ahead and you have to prepare. Because then some disaster might come. An actual disaster might come. A famine, a flood, a plague, a real plague. Not one of these nonsense plagues. A real plague might come. And then you have to be prepared. Because when you're prepared, you suddenly don't have to go to Joseph. You don't have to go to a grabbler. You don't have to become a slave, even though you're probably already a slave. You don't have to become one again. And then you are only a slave to God. He is your only Lord and Master.